So, a former Diageo executive has now joined this cannabis company, and they just signed a distribution deal with one of the biggest leading alcoholic beverage companies in the U.S. Who is it? Find out more in our latest podcast. All right, this is the Dales Report, and happy to be joined here in the podcast today, the CEO of Humble and Fume, Joel Taguri. Joel, great to have you on. How are things?
Things are excited, and it's a great time for Humble and Fume and myself.
I'm hearing that. It's a U.S. cannabis company, but there's some big names, obviously, that's part of your board. But I wanted to have you on, obviously, and I want to give my viewers like a little bit of education on who the company is, why you're building momentum. Most importantly, you made an announcement yesterday that you just completed a U.S. $8 million private placement with a company called Green Acre Capital Distribution, which is also contributing a U.S. $2 million to form a joint venture with you. So this is going to focus and accelerate your expansion into the cannabis industry and distribution operations within the state of California. So walk us through what this financing means for the company's operational footprint in the U.S.
Well, this really helps accelerate our business, and I think what was missing out of that was behind Green Acre was Johnson Brothers, leading beverage alcohol distributor in the U.S. And, you know, this is a transformative announcement for the industry and one of the first of its kind. So it's really exciting for us. What it does is we've acquired a license for distribution in California. We have a facility that we're working on, and right now we're building and talking to brands out there and building our infrastructure. But this allows us to really leapfrog ahead and get that thing up and going in 6 months.
So your background, and I know some of your board members' backgrounds, they put two and two together. They see a partnership, obviously, with Johnson Brothers. So this is a private company. It's one of the leading wine, spirits, and beer distributors in the U.S. It's a multi-billion-dollar company.
Top five,
It's
a top five.
Yeah, so multi-billion-dollar company. So how did this whole idea get brought together, and why does it make sense?
Well, this took a long time. It was over 6 months of conversations, reviewing our Humble and Fume strategy and expansion into plant-touching distribution. We're a distributor at the end of the day, whether it's accessories or cannabis.
Yeah.
We've proven out our route to market in Canada, and you know we're generating some EBITDA margin in Canada. But really, if you look at California, that's a much bigger market, and there's a need for distributors in that market.
How do you get around, like, you know, with this partnership? When I look at the distribution model, let's say within the state of California, there's over 1,000 brands, 800 retailers. Very competitive is an understatement. So how does this partnership help build in your overall U.S. distribution within the state of California?
Well, this is you just mentioned it, why there's the opportunity. There's not a lot of distributors in the marketplace. You know, when retailers are looking and how many vendors can a retailer manage?
Right.
1,000 brands. You know, they need some consolidation there. They need a sales team that can help develop their business. And on the other hand, the producers, they need to be able to scale fast, right? 800 stores for a population of, 27 million, 21 plus in that state. The stores count over time is going to grow to something like 2,000 to 3,000 stores to service that population. And how do you scale that? And that's where the distributor comes into play.
Well, big numbers to say the least. Where do you see, I guess, this whole model going, knowing that your background as far as like, you know, alcoholic brands with your background, you're obviously well experienced working at Southern Glazers of Canada. Your current board member, Jacob Ripstein's experience at Diageo North America, which really grabs a lot of his investors' attention. You clearly have a wealth of knowledge in this space. Do you feel that cannabis brands will ultimately go in the direction of big alcohol in terms of sales and distribution?
Yeah, I think so. It's, you know, if you look at the production side or the producer brand side, that's a capital intensive business. Mm-hmm. And to stretch yourself out into distribution and sales teams and trucks, you know, as we've gone through this, we validated some of our assumptions with the Johnson Brothers, and they ran it through some of their models and gave us an opinion on where they thought the number of trucks needs to be in the routes and the profitability per route. That's where Jacob and myself come in.
Yeah.
Where I come from a distributor background. He comes from a brand producer. We see a lot of similarities in the industries.
Well, Jacob's role when he was with Afria, I think one of the biggest rumors for probably 2 years was, when is Diageo and Afria going to partner up with? But with this partnership, as people are starting to put 2 and 2 together and start to think forward thinking, this generates a lot of interest amongst your investment base. And I have to think too, like once, if and when legislation comes into play, the opportunities that it will present. So when it comes to distribution, what do you think is the current landscape, meaning like what's happening and obviously what needs to change?
Yeah, I think, there's some distributors down there having some limited success. What I see across the board is no one's bringing the full picture, the full experience. Which means that, from a marketing perspective to a scale perspective to distribution, efficiency and effectiveness. That's been learned over time in the alcohol beverage industry to put in place. So this is really exciting for me to bring the full package and have people that we can access to validate our plans, to help build on them. It is incredible future for us.
So furthermore, the agreement states that Johnson Brothers has the right to acquire the Humble and Fume equity for nominal consideration once cannabis has been federally legalized in the United States. It's similar to Canopy Growth Constellation Brands' vision at play here at a macro scale, although on a smaller scale. Or is that a smaller scale, do you think?
I think for the distribution side of things, because you're not investing in the production facilities, it's more the trucks, the warehouses, and people. And, it's a capital light business. And that over time is about scaling that. And, when we look and we refined out of Canada, our processes, we'll bring them to California. We'll expand from there, and you're looking at a $100 billion industry potential in the U.S. with, distribution being in that $10 to $15 billion range at this time. So
when it's, I hear you explain a lot of this stuff, and when I think about the footprint, when it comes to both cannabis and alcoholic brands to coexist under a CPG brand umbrella, do you have an idea as to how you think that will be?
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that one? I'm just a bit...
just as far as like, when I hear you explain a lot of the distribution and stuff like that, what do you think is the footprint when it comes to like both cannabis and alcoholic brands to coexist under a CPG umbrella?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if they're going to really coexist, but they will be in the market together. The consumer is very similar. The consumer journey is very similar in terms of where they're going. If you looked at the early days of alcohol to the early days of cannabis, people were buying in brown jugs, and then the brands became important, and brands have really taken off now, and it's a branded market. And you're starting to see that emergence in cannabis now, and brands are going to stand for something, whether that's quality or innovation. And that's where I see the capital issues for producers. They're going to need to innovate. They're going to have to invest in their brands.
Yes.
And then they're stretching themselves very thin right now, trying to do it all. Right?
Last thing I wanted to touch on was the safe banking and perhaps being included in this year's NDAA, along with the bipartisan bills attempting to make cannabis legal in the U.S. So, let's face it, we know that the writing is on the wall. Do you think that we will see federal legalization occur sooner than what most people might expect?
I personally, I feel like I have hope for it, but I'm not betting on it right now. And I think it'll come, but, I'm not going to place all my bets there. I'm going to operate in the legal states under the regulations and build a business. And if this comes sooner than later, all the better for us.
Big opportunity, though. A lot of conversations circulating around this. But congrats, obviously, on the announcement yesterday. It's a big announcement, partnering with one of the biggest leading alcoholic brands for distribution in the U.S. And obviously, a lot of that ties in with like your and Jacob and other members of your team and the relationships and connections. So I appreciate you connecting with us here today. Let's keep in touch, and we'll keep the conversation going.
No, thanks for your time. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, thanks, Joel.